What is amazing and quite fucking annoying about the conversation about continental Africans not liking African Americans is the fact that African countries, in the course of maybe like the last 300 fucking years, have sent so much aid and help and support to the African Americans here in this country today. And I'm going to give you a list of them. Please keep in mind, some of these countries, the aid that they sent was denied by our own government. Without putting them in any order, I'm going to start with Liberia. In the 60s and 70s, during the Civil Rights Movement, Liberia opened their doors with no hesitation to African Americans that was tired of the bullshit. Next, we can talk about Ghana, when in the late 1950s, early 1960s, during the Civil Rights Movement, their first president, Kwame, opened Ghana up completely to African American citizens. Not only did they offer moral support, but they also offered financial support. And as far as the moral support, they were openly condemning the treatment of black people in this country, all the way over there in their own country. Next, we can talk about Nigeria. They offered financial support and they opened their doors to African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement. They created something called the non-alignment movement, and this non-alignment movement condemned openly, like with no hesitation, the treatment of black people. And beyond that, they offer diplomatic aid, financial aid, and moral aid. Next, we could talk about Egypt. Please also keep in mind the countries I've mentioned and the ones I'm going to mention still, part of their aid was also offering sanctuary to the the threats to American society. People like Stokely Carmichael, Assata Shakur, and a lot of other people. But anyway, let's talk about Egypt. During the Civil Rights Movement, Egypt offered financial support and asylum to any civil rights leader or any civil rights protester. Not to mention, they also openly condemned the mistreatment of black people in this country. I know I ain't gotta mention it, but South Africa, we gonna talk about it. Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement did wonders when it came to connecting us to our motherland. If it wasn't for Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress, Africa probably would have never even known what the fuck was going on over here. It goes without saying, they were also openly condemning the mistreatment of black people in America, all the way over there. Next, we got Tanzania, who in the 1960s offered aid and support to any black intellectuals and civil rights leaders and protesters. When I say protesters, I mean civil rights activists. Anybody that would be considered an activist. If you was out there marching, you're welcome. Sierra Leone goes without saying as well, but we're going to talk about it. Now, when it comes to Sierra Leone, this is actually one of the instances where our own government gave the aid back. Didn't tell us shit. But Sierra Leone did offer resettlement to African Americans, and they openly did that because when they offered that to the government and it came back to them, it was like, okay, we just gonna make it known. And they did just that. Also, keep in mind, when I say that these countries offered relocation and resettlement, they were willing to pay for some of these things. Next, we could talk about Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia was one of the first African nations to actually stand up against what was happening to black Americans once they found out what the fuck we were going through. They aligned more with the black nationalist movement with people like Marcus Garvey. Not to mention, they also supported any Pan-African activists, and they offered resettlement to anyone that was a Pan-African. Next, we can talk about Senegal. Senegal, during the Civil Rights Movement, also opened their doors to African Americans. Also, not to mention, when they sent cloth and materials to the NAACP, it was intercepted and sent back to Senegal. Now, we can go into the countries with rejected offers. Shortly after the Haitian Revolution, Haiti opened its doors to African Americans to have somewhere close to call home. But of course, that didn't make it up here to the mainland. And if it did, it was suppressed. Just like Ghana's offer. Just like Liberia's offer. Not to mention, these countries were willing to pay for the relocation. They were willing to work with our government, pay the larger end of the relocation of these millions of people. But you see, the thing about this conversation is a lot of people don't think about that. Whenever you hear people say, oh, Africans don't like African Americans, very, very shallow, very vague. Because if you ask them to explain, they're just going to say, oh, well, my African friend said they don't really fuck with us. Girl, touch some grass. But what people don't understand is when you say that, think that, believe that, and live that, you're playing right into our opposition's game. How are we supposed to have solidarity amongst ourselves when we are denying our entire lineage? It's okay to be African American. It's okay to be black. That's fine. Because I'm not just African. I'm also not just American. I'm African American. And there's a reason that I proudly say that African part, because we cannot forget that. We can't allow them to force us to cut our own ties with our people. That's what we not gonna do. We know way too much. We're too educated. It's too many resources out here for us to still be doing this shit. So before you say that, just know Africa has always been there for us. They have always been there for us. There has always been a connection. They don't want us to know that, but you need to know that.